painting your bolt action, but oh, your brush has got a bit of a droop to it. You've lost your painting mojo, guys. You're nearly at the end of one project and oh my goodness, you've got another one lined up already. The queue just never seems to go down. Well, maybe you need to give yourself a break, but that doesn't mean stopping painting. Maybe you just need to get creative. In this video I'm going to share this little project with you, and this is something that I do for a lot of games that I play in painting. That I do is I always try to take a creative approach to things. There are times where having a project like this, something you can pick up and put down. You know, when maybe you've got a little session you could do midweek, but you don't really fancy churning through, you know, like, or even picking up another 5 figures from that box that you need to do, but you still feel the need to paint. Well, something like this is a great pick-up project. You can work on it for as little or as much time as you want. Now, what we've got here, as you can see, is a little base, a little scene, drop dice, not bombs, then live to fight another day, which is quite a long phrase, so that's been abbreviated. And we have the 3 German officers from the staff set, little staff blister. Now these guys are all around a map table, pondering the next move, and I had this idea to myself, well, that map table could easily be a wargaming table. So that's where the drop dice not bombs comes from. And you can see here I've got the wargame table, got the little bolt action rule books. This guy's got his army bag on his back, waiting for a chance to have his game. There's an army bag sitting under the table, terrain on the table, one officer trying to figure out the rules, other officer pointing out the relevant part of the table. Now you can imagine with a project like this, you're limited only by your imagination. There could be anything going on, any kind of base, any kind of setting, could be a vehicle, could be anything. But the main thing is that it's something that you're going to enjoy, something that's going to give you a break from the routine, and at the end of the day it's going to be something which you're really pleased to have in your collection. And you know what, you may have picked up another wee hint, skill, tip along the way. So I'm going to show you how I put this together, how I painted it, and then come back and have another look over it. So here we have all the component parts at an early stage of construction. So I'll just go through some of the features one by one. So first of all, drop dice not bombs, and also another side of that, LTFAD, that's live to fight another day. Why not? Now the lettering is made out of milliput, as you can see. I basically printed the lettering using my own printer in the house, just the laserjet printer onto paper, and then put the milliput down onto it, cut around the shape of the lettering, you know, basically cutting back till I just made contact with the print. If you imagine this big bold print, and then when I dried, very carefully removing the paper. Some of these parts are quite thin and milliput will break, it's quite brittle. And then I carefully filed it down and rounded off shapes, because it's hard to cut shapes that are not angular. So it's a bit fiddly, but quite straightforward process. So I've got them mounted on. I've got some walls. These will get weathered down a bit and they'll get placed on once I have the basing material in place. And these are from this Tamiya product. I think it's available in 1/35th scale, but this is a 1/48th set, and it's got all kinds of things in it. It's got girders, poles, sandbags, walls and everything. So that's going to help make the groundwork. I've also got, as I said, some sandbags that I'll place around it. I think I'll place some barbed wire around the edges as well. And then you've got positions in place already. Let me see if this probably won't stay unless it's glued in place. But there you go. Going to be dice spread around in the shell craters as if we are dropping dice and not bombs. I think you get it. Now you can see the wargame table that I've made. There's also some wargame books, a few copies of the bolt action rules. You've got some dice, you've got the tape measure, you've got a discussion going on here. Try to figure out what the rules are, well, like most of us, when we're playing. I've also got a little army bag made up that'll be lying on the ground. And then you've got this guy here who's not playing, not at the moment, but he wants to be playing. So he's brought, I'll just try to turn around, he's brought his army bag with him. And these the army bags, by the way, are made out of green stuff. It's just it's a lump of green stuff. And then I just worked at it until I got zips and pouches and such likes. Fairly straightforward if you're confident of working with green stuff. So he's going to be standing patiently at the end, waiting for his chance to play. So there's a lot of groundwork to be done next. Some touching up on the figures because this project has kind of sat on the back burner for a bit, and then it'll be good to go. So that is the first fix, so to speak, of the groundwork complete. Use some super glue to get these dice glued in, and then applied this stuff. This is great stuff, guys, for bases or for projects like this. They come in a huge variety. This is the only one I've got. I'd like to have more, to be honest. And you just apply it carefully with something like this and a brush. This one I've kind of used it to the point of destruction, but you can use a brush because it's acrylic and water soluble. You can use a brush to, for instance, get a thin layer in and around the feet, maybe a wee bit on the boots as I've done, and then I've also used that to get the paste pushed up into the dice to help for a nice solid grip. Now I'm going to have to be very careful when it comes to painting this. I'm not going to keep this as a final base colour. I need to watch I don't go on to the wood with any paint at all. You can see I've put the walls in place, they're nice and solid, and I'll do some weathering down on them. I used the brush as well to get some of this paste in between the lettering. The lettering probably need a bit of tidying up, but I'll do that once I've painted the groundwork. And then I'll build up the craters around the rocks. At the moment they're just kind of sitting in mud, so to speak, but I won't be building up the groundwork for the craters until I have the flock down. Maybe not little bits of clumps or anything, but at least the flock, because I want the craters, the air from the craters, to be spilling out on top of the other air, because it's like an explosion, except it's a dice making the crater. So there you go. On to some painting next. So there you go. First colour down. This will be the main colour. I'll do some dry brushing and a little bit of pigment powder. And I use for this Panzerrace's colour. It's called Highlight German Black. I think it's for tank crew, highlight for the tank crew, but it's number 337. And it provides quite a nice kind of earthy, excuse me, try and get a shot, a nice kind of earthy colour. And I put it on really thin, one coat, just as a wash. So I used a big brush for the larger areas, a small brush to work around the feet and other details. But there you go. On to a dry brush next. So that's a dry brush, simple little dry brush with some US field drab. I put the table down there just to give me a little idea of how things are progressing overall. I'll just slip that out, because the next step is going to be to add some pigments to the base material. Now the idea with pigments in this case is to just give it a nice earthy kind of look. I'll also put some, so this is actually concrete pigments, but I'll put some of that on the walls just to show their crumbling mortar and such likes. Now you may or may not be familiar with the use of pigments. You may have seen people using them on scale model kits, but this is how I use them. And the most important thing to remember when you're using pigments is less is more. It's very difficult to remove pigments after you've added them. And when you're adding them, it quite often looks as though nothing's happening. So you have to be very patient. You have to add a bit, and then when it's dry, see how it's going and see if you need to add any more. And you can carefully build it up, but you can't carefully build it back down again. It's kind of like taking salt out of something you're cooking. You put too much salt in, it's very hard to fix that. So I use a palette for my pigments. I don't apply pigments dry to anything. I always get it to the consistency that I'm after and then apply it with a brush as a wash, whether it's a tiny little brush for tiny little details like on tanks, or a larger brush for larger areas. So I think I'm going to go for a dark, well, I'll go for, what's it going to be, dark or a bit in the middle, I think. So I'm going to mix up some of this dry pigment and some of this dry pigment, and then I'm going to start applying it to the base. So you can see this is really very, very, very runny. Let's see if I can keep this in shot, my apologies. And I'm applying it as a wash, and then I'm just dragging it around, being careful where I need to be. I can switch to a smaller brush as required. And I'm really, in this instance, just wetting the surface. But you can perhaps already see there's a bit of colour on the surface there. And when it dries, hopefully it's going to dry a colour I like. I've just taken some of the dark and mixed it in with some of the light. We'll just have to see how it goes. So I'm going to keep doing that, and we'll see what it looks like when it's dry. So there's the pigments on. See if I can get this presented a bit to the camera. It's a subtle effect we're after, guys. The pigments are not an end in themselves, they're a means to an end. So it's just to help get a earthier look to the earth, shall we say. And there's a little bit of pigments on the tops or the broken parts of the walls as well, just to get them looking a bit like they've got crumbling mortar on them. So next up is going to be the flocking, or static grass. So I'm going to apply that. I'll show you what I'm going to use, but that's fairly straightforward stuff. So I'll be using this bright green static grass in the main, and then I've got some various accents that I can add to it. And I'll also use some tufts, but I'm going to wait until I have finished the craters before I do that. I want the grass down before the craters get finished, because the craters should be spilling over onto the grass, but I don't want them spilling over onto tuft. That's a bit awkward to make it. So I'm going to put this on with some good old white glue. Nothing exciting there for you to watch, so I'll just come back when it's finished and show you how it looks. So there you go, folks. Start again. So there you go, folks. That's the flock in place. I've left some bare earth for variety, a couple of lighter patches, and then it'll be accentuated again with some tufts later on. The next step is going to be finishing the shell craters, the dice craters as they are. So I'm going to let the flock dry and then move on to that, and I'll show you how I'm going to approach that next. So I'm going to be using milliput to build up these shell craters a bit, mix it up. Good old 2-part epoxy, can't go wrong. Milliput is great for these kind of jobs that compared to, for instance, green stuff. Green stuff is great for, shall we say, more delicate kind of work as opposed to big bulky work like this, and green stuff is really sticky. If you've used it, you'll know that. Milliput isn't sticky, you know, it's not going to stick to your hands in the way that green stuff would. It's not going to stick to the components. So I'm going to start working this around the dice, and I'll just give you a quick demonstration of how I'm doing that. So I just want to roll out a little sausage of milliput. Let's go for this one in the corner here. Just place it in there. I'm going to take this fairly typical kind of sculpting tool. I'm just pushing it in. My intention at the moment is just to get a good firm contact, and then try and get it stuck down a bit more. It's got a bit too thin on that side, so I will lift it off. Get some more. This stuff is going to end up sticking to your fingers a bit, folks, so just be careful how you're handling whatever it is that you're working on. You don't want to be leaving big milliput fingerprints everywhere. So just push it on down, work it on in, work it around. This bit's decided, because I'm showing you it's decided it's going to be tricky. And then I'm pushing the edges down, coming around here. Sorry, I'm going out of shot here a little, folks, sorry. Now, what I'm doing is actually quite rough, as you can probably see, because there will be another layer of paste, similar to, but very different from the paste used there, because I'll be adding to it, and that's going to go on over the top. But this is creating the bulk that we need for the shell craters, and to get the dice looking a little bit more embedded. So I'll crack on with that and show you what I'm going to do with the final layer of paste on top. There we go, sorry, out of shot again, my apologies. So the milliput has dried, and I'm ready to start building up the sides of the craters. You can see I've done one already. That's drying just now. Now, the way I've done that is I'm taking the same Vallejo paste as I used on the base, but then I'm adding some very fine earth to it. And you remember that paste is really quite flowing and wet. This is quite claggy. You know, it's quite solid, and that's what we need to build up the mass of the crater sides. And then I'm also adding in just some of these little stones. I can't remember where I got these from, a modelling shop about 35 years ago or something, I don't know. And I'm just putting them in just to bulk it up a bit. and we'll see what it looks like when it is dry and any kind of painting that I need to do. Those little stones, I might need to add a little bit of colour to them, the little black stones, but I want to keep the painting to a minimum. Maybe just going to be a wash with some pigments, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I'm going to keep working around the rest of the base just now and let you see how it looks when that's done. This paste loses quite a lot of its stickiness after the earth's been added, so you have to really push it down, but push it down in nice thick quantities, not thin quantities. I need to push the edges down as well on top of the surrounding surface, because that's what's supposed to be happening, the earth spilling out, up and out. Get all the milliput covered, even right up to where it's in contact with the dice. Don't want to leave any ugly open edges. And as before, it's a lot going on here, not a hell of a lot of space to work around, but just be patient, shape the tool or the paste on the tool and consider your angle of approach, and then place it on. So I've got a few more to do, folks, but it shouldn't take too long. I'm picking up some static grass as I'm doing this, and it's going into the mix, but that's quite good, to be honest, because there may well be little bits of grass showing. Little bits of grass that have been forced up, dug up, blown up. So I've got a little bit of an untidy edge around here, so I've just got to bulk that up, but do it in such a way as I'm not lifting off any paint, well, any paste, sorry. And then a few randomly placed stones. Just push them in. And repeat until finished. So the craters have dried. They've got the texture I want, but they've not got the colour I want. So I'm going to have to go back to the pigments. A couple of other things I did whilst that was drying. I wanted dice sort of cascading off the front like that. These are not glued in yet. Whoops. But it's quite an easy job to drill them. And I've also put in some mounting points, some barbed wire. I'm going to have a little coil of barbed wire along here, and I'll get them painted nice and rusty. Just as another little feature. So I need to go and get my dark coloured pigment, I reckon, for this, and I'm just going to paint it on quite thick. I'm not going to video it because I'm just really washing it on just as I did with the pigments before, but as I said, put it on thicker this time round. So the pigment on the craters is dry. Hopefully you can see it's got a nice dark, deep, earthy kind of tone, which is quite different from the surrounding surface. I'll have to do a couple of touch-ups. It's always best to let it dry before tackling any little bald patches, because it'll really stand out if you've missed something, I can see some milliput showing around the edges of some of the dice, for instance. So I'll be doing that in this session. I've also stuck these dice on, nice and super glued in place. And I've also used some copper wire, which is what I've also used to pin them. This is copper wire, like waste wire from electrical circuits, so it's like single core wire. And this is going to be for the barbed wire, which I'm using a purpose designed barbed wire product for. I'll be working it through here. It'll be quite tricky to do it, but it'll be stuck on there, and I'm going to give this a nice lovely rusty finish. I use the Panzer Aces rust colours for this. Dark rust, light rust, and a little bit of yellow rust. And it gives a really nice heavily rusted look. This, to be honest, I'm probably just going to wash. These I will give a heavily rusted look. So I shall crack on with these, the touch-ups, and then it's on to the letters after that. So now on to the letters, and this is my palette. I'm going to be painting them red. Got burnt cadmium red, red, scarlet, and bright orange. I have made a start on the get it in short, live to fight another day. And as you can see, I'm just doing a bit of basic, get it in short, excuse me, a bit of basic blending. So I'll make a start. I've got the base colour down, the shade colour down already, and let it dry. So here we go. So there's the lettering, the main colours on. Now the highlight, which should really help just bring the shape of the whole thing together, the letters together, and really make them pop. So there's the lettering finished. Hopefully it's nice and bright without being too neon, if you understand what I mean. You can see how I've used the shade colour and the highlight to create the gap, the spaces in, like the B's for instance, and the R's and the P's. So the job is nearly done, but I still have a couple of things to do. I want to add a couple of tufts here and there, just to help the groundwork a bit. It always helps with a few tufts. I've got some touch-ups to do in the figures. His hair's getting changed. I don't like it. I don't know why we decided to paint it grey, but I don't like it. And then one last little thing, I've got another little army bag made from milliput that needs painted and then placed at the bottom of the table somewhere, and that'll be it done. So I'll just get that done and then come back and show you the final reveal. Well, I hope you found that interesting, folks. Maybe even inspirational, give you some ideas of your own. I certainly enjoyed it, and it isn't something that I did over a weekend, of over a month. I literally did just pick this up and work on it as I had the time. And it's a nice little display piece. It's not often that you get to make something which is specifically designed for display. Certainly a conversation starter. You bring this along to a tournament or a game night at your local club, and everybody's going to be crowded around looking at this, looking at your army, asking you how did you do it, and then you can spread those ideas around, encourage other people to do the same and share their work too. So there you go, folks. Drop dice, not bombs. Get these generals fighting it out on the tabletop with their tape measures, their dice and some beverages, and the world will be a more peaceful place. So, happy painting, folks. If you've got any comments, please share them below. Any questions, please fire away. If you think this is madness, let me know. If you like the idea, why not? Stick a few questions below, share a few ideas and see what people think in the comment section. Okay, thank you for watching.